Good evening, I'm Bakir Aslanov and you're watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. US President Donald Trump sets reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries' exports. US envoy to visit aid distribution sites in Gaza after meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. Kyiv observes a day of mourning after massive Russian strikes. US President Donald Trump has imposed steep tariffs on up to 50% on goods from 69 countries as he pushes ahead with a self-imposed deadline to reshape global trade.
US President Donald Trump has imposed steep new tariffs on imports from 69 countries, including major partners like Canada, Brazil and India, as part of a broad effort to reset global trade terms. The tariffs range from 10% to 50%, with most set to take effect on August 7th, unless goods are already in transit. Under the latest executive order, Canada now faces a 35% duty, Brazil 50%, India 25%, and Switzerland 39%. All countries not listed in the order will be subject to a default 10% import tax. Goods loaded before August 7th and arriving by October 5th will be exempt. The administration also clarified that the tariffs are not cumulative, meaning countries like Brazil won't face double rates, but will still see effective duties rise as high as 50% on most goods. Canada's higher tariffs are already in force after missing the August 1st deadline. Trump accused Ottawa of failing to curb fentanyl smuggling and claimed its government was very poorly led. Mexico, by contrast, secured a 90-day delay after last-minute talks between Trump and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. That pause avoids a 30% hike on most Mexican goods, but certain sectors remain affected, including a 50% tariff on metals and a 25% duty on cars and non-USMCA compliant items. India was hit with a 25% rate after negotiations broke down over access to its agricultural market. Trump also signaled penalties over India's oil trade with Russia. Meanwhile, China has until August 12th to reach a final trade agreement with the US after months of preliminary talks. A US official confirmed progress, but did not elaborate.
Despite the deadline for President Donald Trump's trade deals, few have materialized. Meanwhile, global partners are shifting focus, with Asia strengthening ties, Africa building self-reliance, and South America adjusting exports.
Today marks the deadline to land a trade deal, one that could define the next chapter in US economic policy. Back in April, after Donald Trump launched what he calls his Liberation Day tariffs, his administration boldly promised 90 deals in 90 days. But 120 days later, that ambitious tally stands at just 8, and even those remain vague in detail. But it raises a bigger question. If nations aren't rushing to the table with Washington, where are they looking instead? In April, as a response, South Korea, China and Japan held their first economic dialogue in 5 years, seeking to strengthen regional trade ties as all three Asian export powers brace for the fallout from US tariffs. Meanwhile, American companies are pulling back from China at record levels as tax hikes and rising tensions continue to reshape the economic relationship between the world's two largest economies. A new survey from the US-China Business Council reveals that just 48% of US firms plan to invest in China this year, a steep drop from 80% in 2024. The report also highlights a steady decline in optimism about China's economic prospects, alongside growing pessimism about any improvement in US-China relations. In Africa, countries such as Uganda are doubling down on efforts to build a more resilient, self-sufficient domestic economy. But beyond individual strategies, some African nations see opportunity in the shifting global landscape. This uncertainty could be the catalyst to finally establish the long-discussed regional value chains. allowing countries to trade more within the continent. And in South America, trade shifts are also underway. The region is rich in commodities, with Brazil and Argentina among the world's largest exporters of soybeans and petroleum. Now, with the US imposing tariffs on Chinese goods and China hitting back, South American nations may benefit. Brazil could expand agricultural exports to China to fill the gap left by US suppliers. Trump's latest deal with the EU could be a major win, averting a broader trade war by imposing a reduced 15% tariff on most EU goods. The agreement stabilizes relations between two economies that together account for nearly a third of global trade. However, the EU is still looking for trading partners in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines.
Countries in Asia have been among those hardest hit by President Donald Trump's tariff announcements. This includes India, a key strategic partner of the United States. For months, Indian and American negotiators discussed a trade pact, but talks failed to translate into a deal in time, with the United States also targeting New Delhi over its links to Russia. Our correspondent Neha Punya has more.
India faces 25% tariffs on exports to the United States now. Along with that, an unspecified penalty for buying oil and weapons from Russia. Now that makes the American tariffs on Indian exports higher than what many other Asian countries are facing, barring of course Laos and Myanmar. Businesses here have been reacting, saying that American buyers are either already cutting back or cancelling on their orders, saying they'll hold back until there's more clarity on what that penalty component of tariffs will look like. India sources just about under 40% of its oil needs from Russia, and Moscow is a key defense provider for New Delhi as well. India says that discounted Russian oil is key to keeping its economy running, and this is important given it's a major crude importer. But the US says India's links to Russia are, quote, a point of irritation for Washington, D.C. India has not commented on that, but the Indian government has also not said anything about why trade talks with the US failed to translate into a deal. Sources, however, have been saying that New Delhi was keen to avoid, quote, long-term pain by hurrying into an unenforceable and lopsided deal with the US. It was facing pressure to open up its agriculture and dairy markets, a move that New Delhi says will hurt millions of subsistence farmers who make up a bulk of the country's workforce. India resisted that pressure through the entire negotiation, and the government has now told Parliament India will continue to work to protect its national interest at all costs. Estimates suggest the tariffs could cost India billions in losses and also hurt its economic growth. It's why reports suggest the government is mulling options and weighing up how it could go ahead. It's considering reportedly a proposal to increase US imports, including energy, electronics and communication equipment to appease the US, according to one Bloomberg report. American trade negotiators are also expected to arrive in New Delhi in mid-August to continue trade talks with New Delhi. Neha Punya, 4E News in New Delhi.
Two top U.S. officials are heading into Gaza to assess the worsening humanitarian crisis. The White House says the visit is aimed at improving food aid delivery to the war-torn territory.
Finding out firsthand what life is like for the 1.9 million people displaced in Gaza. That's what the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee are doing on Friday. It's a rare visit by senior American officials to the war-torn Strip. The White House says they'll inspect food distribution sites and secure a plan to deliver more food and meet with local Gazans to hear firsthand about the situation on the ground.
The special envoy and the ambassador will brief the president immediately after their visit to approve a final plan for food and aid distribution into the region. And we will provide more details for all of you once that plan is approved and agreed on by the President of the United States.
According to United Nations aid agencies, food insecurity in Gaza is reaching catastrophic levels. The UN estimates that nearly 80% of the population is now reliant on international assistance. At least 147 people have died of starvation already, according to the local health authority, which says 88 of them were children. 1 in 3 people is now going multiple days without food. Says the UN. Since late May, the UN Human Rights Office estimates more than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed while trying to receive aid. As the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate, Washington is under increasing pressure to ensure assistance reaches civilians quickly.
A Russian missile and drone barrage has killed 31 people and wounded 159 in Kyiv, marking the deadliest attack on Ukraine's capital this year, according to Ukrainian authorities.
Flags flew at half-mast in Kyiv on Friday as the city marked a day of mourning following the deadliest Russian attack on the capital in over a year. According to the Kyiv City Military Administration, at least 31 people were killed and 159 wounded in the overnight strike that began late Wednesday, 30 July, and continued into Thursday. The worst hit site was a 9-story apartment building in the Sviatoshinsky district, where a missile killed dozens of residents. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said crews recovered 28 bodies, including 5 children, one of whom was just 2 years old. Local officials said 16 children were injured, marking the highest number of child casualties in a single attack on Kyiv since Russia's full-scale invasion began in February 2022. Ministry of Health confirmed that 30 people, including 5 children, remain hospitalized as of Friday morning. The city's military administration reported damage across 27 locations in 4 districts, with explosions and falling debris recorded well into the early hours. Residents took shelter in metro stations as blasts lit up the sky. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, Russia launched over 300 drones and 8 missiles during the coordinated assault, targeting homes, schools, and hospitals. Ukrainian defenses managed to intercept 288 drones and 3 cruise missiles, but 5 missiles and 21 drones hit their targets. Missile fragments recovered from the scene are under analysis, but preliminary reports indicate the use of reactive Shahed drones, the same type previously used against Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure.
There is preliminary information that there were reactive Shahed drones. It's not the first time they used them against civilian and municipal infrastructure facilities in Ukraine and the city of Kyiv. Experts are now counting how many reactive Shaheds there were.
President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a statement posted on his official Telegram channel, called it one of the most devastating strikes of the war.
Ukraine's parliament has reversed a controversial anti-corruption law following nationwide protests. The rollback restores key agency powers and addresses concerns raised by civil society and international partners.
Independence to 2 main anti-corruption agencies in Ukraine has been restored. It's after there were mass protests around the country and in Kyiv in a rare show of discontent. The demonstrations were triggered after lawmakers, led by the ruling party, rushed through amendments last week defanging the respected agencies. Protesters were accusing the government of trying to shield political allies from investigation. To defuse a political crisis, President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed legislation restoring the powers of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office.
It is very important that the state listens to public opinion. It hears its citizens. Ukraine is a democracy, absolutely no doubt.
Last week's law had expanded the Prosecutor General's control over corruption cases, allowing them to override or reassign investigations and sideline anti-graft prosecutors. Protesters called it a direct threat to Ukraine's fight against corruption, a key condition for European Union membership and critical to securing international aid. On Thursday, lawmakers voted 331-0 to undo the changes, a move welcomed by civil society and EU officials. Protesters say it was challenging to demonstrate on a night where missiles and drones were bombarding the city.
The night was difficult. I didn't sleep and it wasn't fun at all because of Russian attack. But I came here anyway, met some of my acquaintances that gathered today with one goal, and the goal was reached. So, I am satisfied with this day.
It is important. Someone fights on the front lines. Someone should control the government. I am happy that young people came out and showed that it is not the way to go.
The rollback also exposed political fractures. One lawmaker told the Kyiv Independent that most party members supported the original law without understanding it, believing it came from Zelensky and had Western backing. One MP quit the president's party in protest. While activists say the reversal is a win for civil society, they warn that the anti-corruption fight is far from over.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow remains open to more peace talks with Ukraine, but emphasized that the war's momentum is in Russia's favor. His comments follow U.S. President Donald Trump's warning that new sanctions will be imposed on Moscow and countries buying its energy exports unless Russia takes steps to end the war by August the 8th. Putin, who says Russian forces are advancing along the entire front line, added that Russia's conditions for a truce remain unchanged.
Yes, these conditions have certainly remained the same. These are not conditions. These are goals. I have formulated the goals of Russia. Until now, until that moment, we were told that it was unclear what Russia wanted. We formulated them last June at a meeting with the leadership of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. Everything is clear there, but the main thing is to eradicate the root causes of this crisis. This is the main thing.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has acknowledged his country's failure to build strong ties with neighboring Azerbaijan. During a visit to Zanjan, Pezeshkian said Iran bears responsibility for the lack of stable relations with what he described as a brotherly nation, citing shared religious and cultural ties. He emphasized the need for unity among Muslim countries, especially neighbors, to prevent external interference and promote regional stability. Reflecting on his recent visit to Azerbaijan, Pezeshkian questioned why Iran has failed to develop close ties while countries like Israel have gained influence there. He concluded that the shortcomings lie in Iran's own policies and called for introspection to improve relations with Azerbaijan. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has welcomed the recent steps taken by France and the UK and other countries to recognize a Palestinian state. President Erdogan expressed appreciation for the recent humanitarian responses from Europe, particularly from France and Britain, describing them as highly valuable. Speaking in Ankara, he said he had called French President Emmanuel Macron to congratulate him on his decision. Erdogan added that supporting a two-state solution would represent the most effective stance against Israel's policies. Iran and Pakistan are moving to deepen ties across politics, trade and border cooperation. Tehran says boosting regional links is a priority, with President Masoud Pezeshkian set to visit Pakistan soon at the invitation of Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif.
President Pezeshkian is set to visit Pakistan upon invitation of Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif for a two-day visit, according to Mehdi Sana'i, the political advisor to Iranian president. In a post on his X account, Sana'i wrote, "Relations between the two countries have political, economic, religious, and cultural dimensions. The development of provincial and border cooperation and the promotion of exchanges from the current $3 billion are among the goals of the visit." The Iranian president is scheduled to arrive in Lahore provincial capital of Punjab, to visit the tomb of the prominent politician and poet Allama Iqbal, and will fly to federal capital Islamabad to meet Pakistani President, Prime Minister, and Chief of Army Staff of the Armed Forces on Sunday, according to IRNA news agency. Tehran and Islamabad share a history of close relations marked by frequent high-level visits between top officials, focusing on bilateral ties, particularly in economic and commercial areas, also addressing regional security concerns and shared interests in Middle East and South Asia. Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif visited Iran last May in his second official visit to Tehran in less than a year. Iran was the first country to recognize independence of Pakistan in 1947, and their foreign ministers regularly exchange views on phone and at the regional and international events. This is President Pezeshkian's first official visit to Pakistan after he took office in 2024. Suraj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
In Kabul, environmental cooperation took center stage as Afghan and Kyrgyz officials met to explore new avenues for joint action. Our Afghanistan correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
Matiullah Khalis, the General Director of Afghanistan's National Environmental Protection Agency, held talks with Turdakon Sedikov, the ambassador of Kyrgyzstan, to discuss regional collaboration in combating climate challenges. The two sides emphasized the need for sharing technical expertise and experiences to protect their fragile ecosystems. Mr. Khalis stressed that collective regional action is key to safeguarding natural resources and promoting sustainable development. Kyrgyz ambassador echoed the sentiment, reaffirming his country's support for Afghanistan's environmental initiatives. The meeting comes at a time when Afghanistan is grappling with the severe consequences of climate change. According to the International Organization for Migration, nearly 5 million people in Afghanistan have been affected by climate-related disasters so far this year. Flash floods and avalanches in the first 3 months alone displaced around 175,000 people, nearly 80% due to climate events. Another 396,000 were forced to migrate due to worsening conditions, especially in rural areas. The United Nations reports that many families have lost their homes and are struggling to access clean drinking water. Afghanistan ranks among the 10 countries most vulnerable to climate change. Officials say that without sustained regional cooperation, the environmental crisis will continue to deepen. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
The unclear deep-sea port saga has taken another turn. Washington's International Arbitration Tribunal has sided with the Georgian government again, this time rejecting claims by a foreign investor linked to the project. The Justice Ministry says this proves the state acted lawfully, but the opposition isn't convinced. Here is more.
Mamuka Khazaradze and Badri Japaridze have suffered from another legal blow over an unclear port case, this time in Washington. According to Georgia's Ministry of Justice, the World Bank's Arbitration Center ruled in favor of the state, rejecting all the claims brought by Dutch partner Bob Mayer. The tribunal found that the investors failed to raise necessary funds, missed key deadlines, and carried full commercial risks for the project. It ruled that the government was right to cancel the contract and had supported the port's development all this time. As a result, Bob Mayer now must pay $6.5 million to the Georgian government after already losing $1.5 billion case in Paris arbitration last year alongside Japaridze and Khazaradze. The ministry insists that this proves there was no government interference in Anaclea's failure. It also says that the legality of the money laundering case against Khazaradze and Japaridze was not questioned. But the opposition party, Lelo Strong Georgia, disagrees, calling the government statements misleading. They claimed that the Anaclea's project was killed 6 years ago on Russian orders and argued that this case was strictly between the investor and the state. Just a couple days ago from prison, Khazaradze called the cancellation of Anaklia the anatomy of treasury, arguing and accusing the ruling Georgian Dream Party that they blocked the project that could turn Georgia into a key regional hub. This case raises questions about investors' confidence and whether Georgia will ever revive this project. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
Turkish archaeologists have uncovered a well-preserved council house in the ancient city of Laodicea, which is over 2,000 years old. It is believed to have served as a key political and judicial center during the Roman era.
Hidden under the soil of western Turkey, a 2,050-year-old building has been uncovered, believed to be the main council house of the ancient city of Laodicea. And now, archaeologists have revealed one of its most important public buildings, a bouleuterion, where city officials gathered to make political and legal decisions. The building has a rare design, pentagon-shaped outer walls that form a hexagon inside. Names carved into the 17 rows of seats identify council members and local leaders, offering a direct link to how the city was governed.
We're talking about a 2,050-year-old structure. Considering it remained in use until the 7th century CE, this monumental building served Laodicea continuously for approximately 750 years, functioning simultaneously as an administrative hub, governmental centre and judicial complex.
Now, nearly 2,000 years later, this ancient council house is once again open to the world, helping us understand how the people of Laodicea lived, ruled and kept order.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and have a lovely evening.